How are ya? Huh? How are ya? I thought I'd get you laughing. Should we start off? Really, I know you hate this kind of thing, but
I do.
all your colleagues.
Yeah.
But really, it's an honor to be here with the founder and creator of Masterclass. Oh, but one thing I would love to know is where were you born?
I was actually born in South Philadelphia.
Hey, man, love Philadelphia. Really love
Yeah.
South Philadelphia.
Yes.
We've got some tremendous memories down there.
We sure do.
Some great times. And how did you get into music?
Being from South Philadelphia, they were, infatuated with Mario Lanza, but other singers. They were tenor freaks. My family, Gigli and Delmonico and Corelli. They forced me to get violin lessons, which didn't turn out so good because, as a kid, and I couldn't go to anybody. I thought I broke the violin. All I did was I broke the string. And I didn't know you can go to the store, go buy a string, put it on. So, and it just so happened to be that Joseph Primavera was my violin teacher in 4th grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was ducking him for about 2 months. And because I was embarrassed, I really seriously thought, that's how stupid I was. I thought I broke the violin. So he finally catches me in the hall later, and he said, if you don't bring that damn violin in, he says, I'm going to have the police go to your house. I'm bringing your parents into school. He says, and you're never going to be back into school. I said, you get that violin and stick it in your ass. And my God, it was like when my parents found that, it was like, first of all, they were humiliated. We met up in a different situation, which I'm sure we'll get to. No idea. So that was the end of my violin career. And then, when I was about 14, my friends of the family, who were opera singers, so they were doing a production of Madame Butterfly at the Forum. Remember the Forum on Broad in Oregon, that little
Absolutely.
theater? Insisted that my brother and I went. Frank Munafo came in. He was doing the Pinkerton that night. And I sat and I listened, and I felt like he was singing just to me. But I said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
You caught the virus.
Oh, my goodness.
So where'd you wind up in high school there in Philly?
I went to South Philadelphia High School. The teacher there was William Yates, Bill Yates, and who sang. He was a Curtis graduate. He was at Southern for 37 years. I was walking down the hallway, and I heard somebody singing "Que yo le da Marina," and I said, "Who the hell is that?" I thought it was a recording. We're in the room, and I'm listening, and here's Yates sitting and playing because he had a concert at Curtis. It was an alumni concert.
Singing it and accompanying
himself.
Wow.
And it was so beautiful. And I was sitting, and I must have slipped or something fell off the desk, and he flipped around and he turned. He says, "What are you doing in here?" I said, "What are you doing singing that?" I said, "You're not Italian." So, and we became great friends ever since. And he's the person who really was responsible for me to go into music. He made me a pact that he would give me free voice lessons every day in school if I decided to go and take this as a career. And he gave my brother and I voice lessons every day after school for the 3 years that I was at South Philadelphia High School to get me into the Philadelphia College of Performing Arts, where I got my undergrad and my graduate degree.
You know, that it is amazing, those touches in our careers. And it typically started, I think, for many of us, that first teacher that was able to see the talent in you, but also, man, that's more than a drive-by touch. That's huge. And I know he put it in your heart to pay it forward, and master classes, one of your many ways of paying it forward. So
thank you.
Well, tell me a little bit about, did they do any productions in high school? Did you?
Yes. The first night when I had a small role in Hello Dolly, which, in a high school production, everything goes wrong. So I was actually moving a piece of scenery in the stage. The curtain went up, and I'm standing in the middle of the stage with a desk in my hand. So that got a laugh. After that, I did Fiorello, which was my first really big, high school thing. Then I went in and I did South Pacific after that.
We would both agree the stage is probably eventually, and if not initially the best teacher.
Yes.
And so how did that play into your college career?
Well, it got me ready. Yes, I got in my undergrad, which you're not really supposed to be on in the opera department as an undergrad, but my first role was with Gordon File. We were both Papageno in the Magic Flute. That was my first, and actually that would be besides that, which I was lucky. I was my first professional role actually after I was 19 the first time I actually physically made money and sang an opera, which was
That had to be
Papageno.
exciting.
It really was.
Who
Yes.
was I'm just curious who your Papageno was in that production. Do you remember?
Oh my God. Oh, you're going to ask me these questions. In that production, Papagena was probably Dorothy Cardella.
Really?
Yes.
Well, a shout out to Dorothy.
The Pamina, I want to say, was Marianne Labriola.
No kidding.
Yep.
Well, I'll be.
Yep. Yep.
Two lovely ladies. I know
Absolutely.
them. So hey, I know you did a lot of concerts,
Yes.
and you did it with some pretty famous entertainers, didn't you?
Yeah, well, the funny Fury stories that we have. Fury was the first person to introduce me to Dom DeLuise. Because I was singing with him since I was like 16. I worked with him as a coach, and 18 when I did the Pavarotti competition. So Fury actually prepared us, and we spoke about that other than the crap that he put on, he really did know his stuff. So it took us backstage, and we met Dom DeLuise when I was about 17 years old. And
what was that like?
Oh, it was amazing, because first of all, he did a big skit that he pretended he was Pavarotti and he would sing, and that was hilarious because he's the same size, bald, the whole 9 yards.
Oh,
but
yeah,
that was hilarious. And we brought him about 24 cannolis from downtown, and he never forgot that. My brother and I were singing for Capitol Records. He came literally running up to us and gave us hugs because he remembered it. And and then after that, we stood in touch for a long while. But there was so many people there. I mean, like that's where I met Lou Rawls, Ruth Buzzy. Oh my God, there's so many. Catherine Narducci from The Sopranos. There's so many. The guy that played Fiorio, Federico. He's an artist. He's just wonderful people. So we were amongst the crowd at such a very young age. But my favorite of all was probably Pat Cooper. And he did one thing for us as young singers that I don't think anybody has ever done. We were singing concerts. It was Arturo Coppola, who was of course the famous carpet, and then my brother and I were in the middle, and Pat Cooper closed the show. Rose of Pawtucket in Rhode Island. So these half-assed so-called gangsters were running this. So the place was packed, and I'm sitting back in. I just got a gut feeling, and I said, Pat, I don't think we're going to get paid for this. And he got, what? What do you mean? What do you mean? Because he gets, and the way he was on stage was the way he was off stage. What do you mean? I said, I just got a feeling. I don't think that we're going to get paid for this. Oh, yeah? So my brother and I go on. We sing our set. He runs out of the dressing room, does his 45 minutes, comes running off, takes his jacket off, and runs in the office. And I turned around and he says, go get your money. I said, what do you mean, go get my money? What did you do? He says, oh, listen to me, go get your money. So we go, and here was 2 stacks of money, cash, one for me, one for my brother. What did you do? I want to know what you did. He said, I told them to make sure that you guys got your money and I could wait for mine. And he waited a year and a half to get paid from that. But it got me used to the stage because it's different from a character as in an opera or in a concert. And my brother and I would do these things, across the country, we used to call them Dego Fests. So gave us the opportunity to really know what it took to stand in front of a crowd, unscripted and just with music, and that's it. And, you create your own, themes.
I remember you telling me that, y'all's approach to being on stage and singing was one thing, but backstage was a little different, wasn't it?
Oh my George, if I tell you that how many fistfights we had behind, and all I would say was, can we do a different duet? I mean, I got so tired of the Pearl Fishers duet. You hear bang, boom, pop, just like 5 minutes before we would go on. This is the God's honest truth. They used to put us on separate ends of the hotel because we were afraid we were going to kill each other. And then don't get me wrong, I love him, God rest his soul. I love my brother dearly, but when you're in the same profession and you're together all the time, you know, it's worse than a marriage. Because I wanted to go back to opera, and you know, it was nice to have the Tenaglia. At that time it was the duo, but then it became the trio when I got married to Joan, and she used to come with us. And it just got to be too much on the road, you know. And we had Richie, you know, we would take Rich. And one other funny story I have to tell you, when we were doing one of those concerts, Frankie and Joni were singing the Cavalleria duet, and I was backstage, and Rich, who might have been at the time 4, so you know, in the duet, my brother gives Joni a shove, and Rich got up from the front seat and he said, "Don't you touch my mommy."
You raised him right there, John.
Oh yeah, they were my kids, both of them. Who my daughter actually has the voice. My daughter's the voice out of the whole family. She's got the best, but has tremendous stage fright. She'll never. But my son, you know, he sang a little bit in high school. But they were all very, very musical sensitive.
Getting back with your desire to be on the operatic stage, I know you said your debut at 19 as Papageno. So tell me about, you know, some of the roles you sang in your 20s.
Well,
that was just like 10 years ago too. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yes. Tell my body that though. I Marriage of Figaro. That's when I got engaged, which, you know, I always said that was my bad luck opera.
That's
I did the count. I started to get into a little bit heavier rep. I did I did Merry Widow first. Then my first, which at 20 or 21, I did my first Bohème.
Now, was that the one with Fiore and Richard Burke and me and Jenny Kelly?
That was the first one. Yes, that was the very first one.
That was a fun night.
Oh, that was great. Look, I have to tell you the Fiore story. I have to get this one out.
Okay.
Because as many, and this was right after this opera. Okay, he did that. He was doing Bohème with us, and then he also cast in. He was doing wanted to do a Pagliacci. My cousin Joe also had a tenor voice. He actually studied with Marshall Heimbaugh. He's actually a professional. He's a lawyer. And I said, if you're going to do the Beppe, I'll do the Silvio. I said, I'll do it. You know. So, and I told Joe, I said, Joe, listen, Fiore has a line of BS. I thought you got to be careful, because my cousin was pretty well off. I said, whatever you do, don't lend him money. So my cousin sang well. You know, the performance went over. 2 weeks go by, phone calls. "Hey, Johnny, how you doing?" I said, "Joe, how you doing? What's up?" He says, "You're going to get mad at me." I said, "Well, what's the matter?" He said, "Well, you told me not to lend Fiore money, and I did. I lent him $2,000. I said, "Are you nuts?" I said, "What's wrong with you?" So I said, "Okay, I'll take care of it." My brother and I rented a U-Haul truck. We went to his studio on, it was 1618 Spruce Street at the time. Went up, pulled the U-Haul, rang the bell, and Maestro Fiore, how are you? "Tenaglia, come upstairs." So go upstairs. My brother goes on one side of the piano. I go on the other side of the piano. We start taking the piano out the door. And he says, whoa, 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 what's going on? He said, I said, well, you borrowed $2,000 from my cousin Joe. I said, and you haven't paid him yet. You said you were going to pay him right after the opera. He hasn't gotten paid. So we're going to take the piano, and when you get the $2,000, we'll give you back your piano. No, 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 no. Victoria mailed the check. I said, okay. We'll wait until Tuesday. This was like a Saturday afternoon. So Tuesday, he had the money. So he never actually, and we never spoke after that.
Okay, so you're doing the Count and Figaro.
Yes.
And I guess, is Joni doing the Susanna?
She did the Susanna at the time.
Okay. So were you like 21, 22 when you got married?
I was 22 and a half, maybe 20. I might have been 23.
What was staying on the road like, and being away from home so long?
Well, it took its toll. Not, I was fortunate. Joni understood because she was a singer. What happened was my father had passed away. And it was in 1994 or 5. And I was contracted until 2000, I think, I want to say. And my father was my best friend. It really took its toll. And then, I couldn't leave my mother by herself because at that time she just started to get, we didn't know it. We didn't even know what Alzheimer's was.
Oh.
And now you're talking about a brilliant woman, from a woman who was amazingly brilliant, starting to lose it. And so we had her move in with me. And this is one of the reasons why I say I could do anything on earth that I want, because I had my mother and my mother-in-law would live with me at the same time. So I know I am going right to heaven.
Gosh.
The two kids. Yeah. And the last thing I sang was, I think it was Traviata. I don't know, Cincinnati or somewhere. And I said, what the hell am I doing? And, I was just at that point where things were starting to get good.
Yeah.
And, and I had, my management, they didn't want me to stop. And they said, why don't you just take a break and then come back? And I said, you know what? It's not worth it. As much as I had the love that I had for the stage, and I had the love, and I felt so honored to sing that music that, of these geniuses. And, listen, was it always great, singing? No, because I was, at the time, by the time I was 30-ish, 34, I just started to really come into my own. And, I lost the drive, I guess. I didn't lose the passion for music. I think I just lost the drive to do it. And unfortunately, I sang afterwards, and I tried to, come back, and it was a different business from the time that I left to the time I started to come back, which would have been 2000. Well, Rich would have been in high school, so like 2007. So and it just wasn't the same business. It was, and
it had changed a lot.
Yeah. And when I came back, and this new, I guess you want to call them, regime, had no idea what I've done and who I did it with. And I just, it actually turned, I just had a bitter taste in my mouth. And I said, you know what, I'm better off going out the way I did, because I sang what I wanted to sing. I still sang with a lot of, like you, I've met great people. I have great people in my life to represent my career. And I was fortunate. I was very much more fortunate than I was deserving of the jobs that I got. Because, when you're in your 20s, like you said before, the voice is not really, vocally sound as it should be. And, that's one of the mistakes that I made, because, let's face it, Traviata, I was doing when I did my first Traviata, I was probably 22. And the tenor that I was singing with was 40.
Mm-hmm.
So, there was as much makeup as, you want to put on me. I'm not 50 years old. I mean, because of the way I sang, I guess I got through it at that age. Now, now I sing, I can do it with my eyes closed, but you're really not ready for that kind of, I guess, experience. But fortunately enough, I did it, and I got through it. So was it always great singing to me? If I look back now and listen to it, I'd have to say no.
I have to say, going back with those people, the lineage that came through our career, and then it kind of changed in the mid to late 90s, if you will. But those guys, they took great care of us. They
Yes,
wanted that to go on. There was a lot of
absolutely.
and we did. There was no, I mean, jealousy really wasn't a part of it. They were just excited that we were young and
Sure,
singing,
sure.
and so, well, with that, I know that those colleagues played a huge part in your
Oh,
life with the
absolutely. Yeah,
relationships. But
yeah.
how did your teachers, as you move forward with your vocal prowess? I mean, how did they impact your career?
Well, when I left PCPA, I was with Vivian, and one person that was very, very special to me, who was my friend, my coach, um, a psychiatrist, my roommate at times, was Richard Raub. Richard is an amazing, amazing accompanist, an amazing coach, and always kept me on the straight and narrow, I have to say. And then, he from PCPA, he went to AVA, and he's been there for many, many, many years, and a dear, dear, dear friend. And then, directly after that, I went to sing with Richard Barrett. Actually, I studied with Richard Barrett for a few years. The problem with Richard, and it had nothing to do with his teaching because he was really, really correct. It's just that I was too young to get it,
Hmm.
and I was fortunate again. I had a more of a natural voice than I knew what to do with it. Because to be honest with you, my problem was through the passaggio
Right.
and going through. That was where my problem led, and I knew it. It's not that I couldn't blast a high note. It's just that getting there was not easy, and Richard tried. Um, I wasn't ready for him. Then I went to Armin Boyajian. I studied with Armin,
Yes.
and I
Lovely man.
oh, great, great, great man. And I just couldn't afford it. I couldn't. I called Manafo. I called Frank,
Yeah.
and I said, Frank, I'm really having trouble. I said, I'm not. It's not. It's getting difficult to navigate through these things, because especially in a lot of Verdi stuff, it sits on E's, F's, F sharp.
Yes.
Come back to Philly for a little bit. He says, I want you to meet Gary Magby. I
Okay.
had no idea who Gary Magby was. And he never said he was a voice teacher. He said, I always want to be your coach. It just, for some reason, everything just clicked.
Hmm.
And he brought me into the holistic and spiritualism of singing, just not going out there to sing notes and characters and things like that. He really put the package together, and it took probably 3 years. I really owe the polishing of my voice to Gary Magby, I have to say.
Hmm.
Don't misunderstand. It's not that Richard didn't do it, because they said the same thing, just in a different way.
Talking about working with a great coach and everything, and those great composers that really studied how each voice worked.
Yeah.
We talk about, you're talking about going through the passaggio and the upper, that second break into the head voice or the upper register. And, but those composers, those great composers, especially Verdi uh, they, they took that into account when they looked at the key signature, when
Yes.
they put the notes on there, the stress of the language. And oftentimes, I was wondering if maybe you might speak to that as well to young singers.
Yeah.
I know most of us when we start up, it's all about the voice, and as we go further in our career, it is about those other layers.
Yeah.
But sometimes when we get ourselves out of the way, and we just let that music on the page and the character, obviously, but
Sure.
if we go after what's written on that page, like speak to some of the Verdi roles, the Germont, maybe even.
Especially with Verdi, it's there. The problem is that you have to overturn. You have to really look deeper than what's on the page, because a lot of the, when I have a score, I look at it, and then I try and go back and I research the actual manuscript, because a lot of the things that are written in today's scores are editors' markings, and
Yes.
the Verdi especially wrote things on different notes, especially in the baritone voice, that he wanted this certain color. And he did it on these specific notes because he knew what the voice was going to do at that moment, in that emotional state and musical state. And with young singers, I think that what happens is we're too impressed with making a sound.
Yes.
Especially in Verdi, you think you want to hear this sound, and it's not that at all. And it took me many years to really learn not to do that. but it's written that way for a reason, because they knew the voices so well, and actually dig into the music itself and find out, why is this on an A flat? Why is this from it? Why does this jump go from a C to an F sharp? Vocal, I guess, impression that he's trying to make through the character, and it's all there. I mean, it's written out for you. You just have to trust it and sit back, and when you're ready to sing that, to get back and just let it go. I mean,
Yes.
really, and it's the honesty of the music that I think is missing today, especially in younger singers, because they try and create a tone that really doesn't complement their age, their musicality, or the music that they're singing. And what happens is that when you start to play with that, say, you're not really attentive to the music, to what you're singing. It's more about you than it is the music.
And that does change as you graduate through your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s.
Sure, absolutely.
Of course, neither one of us are out of our 40s yet.
No,
but,
no, absolutely not.
Well, hey, it does take a village, doesn't it, to
Yes.
make a great singer? So
Yes.
that one special person that kind of blends all of us together,
right.
the mind, the heart, the soul, the voice, and everything else. Did you have any directors that led you in that path as well?
Yes. Well, Kay Walker Castaldo, who I know you remember well.
Yeah.
She was the first person who really taught me and pinned me down. She was the only person. She would give me those sexy eyes, and she would look down at me and look over her desk. And she said, "What made you raise your hand?" And I would say, "I don't know. I got to think about that." They said, "Well, what made you turn? Who are you talking to?" One of the finest directors. I know she was a little out there as far as some concepts that she had, but as far as my stage technique, she started that. And I worked with a lot. Oh my God, it's so Tito Capabianco. I worked with
Yes.
David Gately.
David, yes.
Let's see, Dottie Danner, who was just marvelous.
Yeah.
David, the one thing about David, I did Mikado with David at Chautauqua, and he was a very on the beat, specific director, and I never had anybody so specific. He was, and you had to be that fast. But that's what sharpened me. He sharpened me, because, to be honest with you, I was afraid of him.
He's a brilliant man.
Oh,
yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Then there was another woman that I worked with. Her name was Sally Stunkel. She was very keen about my size. Because
Yes.
not that I was big at the time. I was on the way of getting plump. There was Buzz Kimball. I had a lot of fortune. I was fortunate to work with a lot of people. Because I did a butterfly with Florence Kovar.
Oh man, yeah.
That was her only butterfly. And
Really?
and I saw her when I was at AVA. We were I was listening to a concert or something, and I can't think of who the soprano was, but she had so much perfume on that when she lit the candle, she almost blew herself up because of the perfume. Oh, that's a true story. You have to ask Florence; she'll tell you that. I learned the role because you remember Jeffrey Kneebone?
Oh yeah, I remember Jeff.
Jeffrey Kneebone got me into City Opera, and I was the 29th cover of Sharpless. So, and at that age, my ego was a little high, which was probably around 23. So something that I shouldn't really have ever, but I was a cover. I wasn't, Jeff was actually the Sharpless. But, I said to myself, oh my goodness, I'm wasting my time here. If I had a brain one, I would have stood there and soaked in all those people that were there at the time. Was Ramey, was Morris, and so many people were there that and I'm saying to myself, I kick myself in the ass now, because sometimes your ego gets the best. There was no way at 22 or 23 years old that I should be doing those roles to begin with. And that's one of the many mistakes as a young singer that I made.
I don't think you're alone there, though. I think we all did. And I think, when you're coming up in your 20s, that energy is infectious. And you want that. And really, frankly, to be on stage and doing the things, especially at that age, you have to have a considerable amount of ego. And ego for us, I don't mean it in the sense of debilitating.
Right.
Well, let's see, we've come through high school,
Yeah,
college, your
yeah,
vocal uh, teachers, your coaches, your
yeah.
directors. I want to know what it was like to work with Capobianco.
The man was brilliant. He was brilliant. Again, it was a bohème that I did with him at Pittsburgh. It was an honor. I mean, not a privilege. It was an honor just to be in the same room with him and listen to what he was saying about the characters. And let's face it, I've done bohème probably maybe 50 or 60 times. I say it all the time. Pagliacci's and bohème bought this house. So it's just the insight that he did and why. When you would sit, when I would watch him work with Mimi in the fourth act when she was dying, I couldn't help but cry.
Mm,
And they were just working it out. I'm saying to myself, my God, I never really listened to this, or I never really watched that like this. He was something. He really was something. And I saw him at the AVA before he passed. It was probably about 6 months
mm.
before he passed. He was directing something at AVA, and we brought back so many memories. But he was a maestro. He was a true artist,
A real
really.
gentleman.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. Yes.
Well, so singers,
Yes.
you'd mentioned some pretty famous singers there, and of course you have some of our other colleagues on here are
Yeah.
extremely famous. I think the lineage of when we grew up,
Mhm.
we did have a good rearview mirror
Yes.
to look back on, really learning from those great artists. And I know
Hmm.
that we've talked about, man, what would we have done with YouTube?
Oh.
When you think about singers, I'm going to
Mhm.
ask you a different question because
Sure.
I know that I grew up listening to LPs and you did
Mhm.
too. Um, after after you started hearing some people in person,
Mhm.
um, give me an idea who your go-to singers were before, and then maybe after you started hearing different sounds live, and how that impacted your ear and the training of your ear as to the direction you wanted to go with your voice.
Yeah, well, I was a big Leonard Warren fan. That was,
Yes,
he was my go-to still till today. If I want, he was one of a kind. There was no other. I
agreed.
listened to Bastianini and Robert Merrill, um, but some of the people that I really envied on stage, and I'm going to give you other than, and believe it or not, George, you were one of those singers. It really, because, and again, I said it before and I'll say it again. I never heard you sing a bad note. And I met Barbara Dever. I did Elijah. It was
Mm,
probably in the '80s. But the first world premiere I was hired to do was with John Cheek. It
John,
was, yeah, it was William Penn.
boy, talk about somebody consistent, man.
Oh my
That
God.
dude, he was on all the time.
Now, I never performed the opera, and I'll tell you what happened. I had a probably a small role. It was maybe 10 sentences. I got a job. I actually had got another Chenard, believe it or not. So I went off. I don't know where it was, and I got out of the contract. But they were doing the world premiere of William Penn. My
Mm,
friend Josephine Salerno, who's Nadja Salerno Sonnenberg, the violinist's mom,
yes.
she was in the choir at St. Pete's, where I was the choir director. She used to work for Rittenhouse Opera. She worked for Cascarini, Romeo Cascarini, who wrote William Penn, and she happened to bring this up. And she says, I have a recording of it. I said, you're kidding. I said, I was supposed to do that opera, and I never did. So she gave me a copy of the recording, and I listened to. I completely forgot how astonishing John Cheek was on stage.
Mm.
This was a live recording, and and I heard him in rehearsal. The music went from top to bottom, and that man, and he'll tell you, because that's how we rekindled our relationship. It's just so glorious. He's one person that I listened to him live. Another person who I became friendly with was Renato Brusson,
Mm.
who I heard in Philadelphia do. He did a concert version of Macbeth. He did a concert version of Rigoletto. Um, and to be honest with you, I didn't like him in recordings, but I loved him in the hall.
Interesting. We'll
It,
speak to that for a second because there are some voices that don't record well that are phenomenal in the hall.
Me, I don't record. I really don't record well. He had, it was a lighter voice. He
Hmm.
sang so fluid, but you never got on the recordings. You didn't get that chill.
Yeah.
But in the house, you did. At the same time, in those concert versions, he was so still, and you're looking for this guy to take a breath, and he said, how the hell did he make it through the damn phrase? I mean, the man never took a breath. And
Mm.
doing the same roles, I'm singing it with him in my head, and I'm saying to myself, holy crap. And that was one person that I thought that was miraculous in the whole. My first Pagliacci was with Manafo, Frank Manafo, and that man. If he really hit the mainstream, there would have never been a Pavarotti or Domingo. Believe me when I tell you. First time
Wow.
that I did the Pagliacci, I sat there because some roles are written for certain voices. That role was written for Frank. Just glorious every time. I would miss my cues because I was listening to him, in rehearsals, because you would stand next to first of all, the man's voice was huge. I mean, huge.
Mm.
And again, Frank didn't always record well. I've heard recordings of Frank, and you say to yourself, I was there. I said, I don't remember that. So there you go. I mean, the human voice in the house takes on a different characteristic.
Yes.
And, you have to be, George, I don't have to tell you this. When you're in the hall, it just gives you a different presentation, because you encompass that whole room. And, there's nothing more thrilling than when things are going well. And, that feeling that first of all, you're honored to sing that music. As I said before, you can't explain it. It's the most euphoric thing that I have ever done in my life, and that's including sex.
Of course, things have changed.
Yes.
We grew up loving big voices. Now that's kind of shun on by some. And then the other is getting that opportunity to work in a big hall and work to get your voice to the back of the hall and understand how that works. It's not always tanking up and giving this big sound, right?
No, absolutely. It's actually, to me, it's the opposite.
Yes.
Because when I felt like I was singing big, it was wrong.
Yes.
I would be fatigued, and I would be, saying, what the hell am I doing? I'm hoarse. It's not that at all. The human voice is so miraculous how it's produced. I mean, when you really do it, and everybody's voice is different because the shape of our faces. I'm a firm believer of, using those bones and the structures to get that sound out. And, that's what makes everybody unique. And yes, unfortunately, we don't hear bigger voices like ours too much. And not that we're throwing bouquets. I'm not doing that. I'm not saying that, we were the best. It's not what I'm saying at all. It's just that you don't hear that quality, or you don't hear that sound in bigger places. That, when I heard Fanciullo del West at the Met, and I listened to Gania Dimitriova, and it was so I used to go every Thursday mostly by myself at the time, with Martinucci. And when she sang, I was under the first balcony on the floor. She started to sing, my hair, when I had hair, blew back. I just felt her voice going right over my head.
Oh,
it was incredible.
It was a vocione.
Oh my God. It's just, and the same thing with, like, I heard Birgit Nielsen on her farewell tour. I heard Leontine Price on her. Those voices, and Birgit Nielsen especially, because she was 4 foot by 4 foot. But the sound, and she was just so calm. You never saw the pillars of death come out of her. Yes. She used to sing that, just stay there, and just that sound was just so damn glorious. And it was outside at the Man. It was. Wow. They don't get much better than that.
We did. No, I agree, and I think all of the young singers, if they could, if they can go hear as much live singing as they can, that there's a lesson in that. And not just the famous ones. We've talked about that before. Some of the best singers I ever sang with didn't have a huge career. Right. And I never could understand why. Speaking on to in the theater, I was always taught that you treated the janitor with the most respect. And so I know that I've had different jobs in the theater, and I know you have too. Mm-hmm. You want to speak to some of that?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, we used to play cards all night. That was one of the things that, with everybody, I did some conducting, where I did a little bit, very little of directing. I did some sets. I mean, I made sets. I don't think I've ever talked down to anybody.
And doesn't that give you like this different perspective, doesn't it? This great respect for those around you that made that performance possible, really, because I
Absolutely.
mean, it really is a magic thing coming together.
There's so many people behind the scenes that never get recognized, and I always I made it a point to go back to them and thank them for what they did. Even the people that used to paint the sets, I would go back there. I'd say, "Do you need help? Something I could do? Let's go get lunch." I mean, I love people. I love interesting people. I love people who have different talents. I always, I admire people who do things that I can't do, or I want to do, or I want to learn about.
I have to echo this because I know people out in virtual land.
Mm,
If they were afforded the opportunity to spend time with you, my good friend,
nice.
you, uh, your heart is so big,
Thank you.
and the love that you have for your fellow human beings, regardless of age, regardless
Yeah.
of station. But I just have to say, I mean, for me, that is what I, not to take away from the throat, because you've got a
Yeah.
great throat, but for
Thank you.
me, that that's what makes you special to so many of us. And I know my
Thank you.
colleagues would echo the same sentiment.
Thank you.
And so I hope that going into the next segment is close to you, but I know it's close to a lot of other singers, and it wasn't close to me until recently. And I had to look at it because of some health issues, but I've seen so many of my colleagues lose their career, lose their jobs, because we have directors that come into the world of opera from outside,
Hmm.
and they don't understand the physicality of singing on the stage with no microphone over a
Hmm.
125 piece orchestra.
Hmm.
So um, we both know too that there's some roles that you go in there and you can easily drop 10 pounds in a
Oh,
performance,
absolutely. Yeah. Hmm.
right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
let's speak to I know that's we did have someone sing for us this year that both of us
Hmm.
recognized, that might have been being held back because of his body shape. If
Yes.
we want to be skirting around,
No, don't
the
skirt.
mulberry
Yeah.
bush, but I mean, talk to us
Mhm.
about that battle.
Well, see, that was actually when I was making a comeback, because I eat when I'm frustrated. That's my go-to thing anymore. Right? And it's been. I found that people judge you now, and I'm gonna tell you a quick story. I was going in. I already had a job. They didn't. It was a blind. I didn't know who the conductor. Didn't know the uh, director of this particular. But now
Yeah,
I'll
that's
tell you the truth.
blind.
I'm 350 pounds.
Understood.
Okay, now I go into this place, and I'm not. I'm dressed in sweats, and so this person who was the director came up to me and said, "Is there something I can help you with?" I said, "No, not really." I didn't know who she was, or who, what was going on. I said, she says, "Were you supposed to be?" I said, "Yes, I am actually." She says, and she came off and she says, "Well, what are you supposed to be doing?" I said, "I'm the plumber."
Hmm.
So she walked off, and then the rehearsal started. And then she saw that I was in the cast. She made such a stink with the conductor why I was on stage because of my size,
Hmm.
that um, until she started to get it when I started to sing. One thing that I have to say, that do I want to be this big? Not really. No. And I honestly, do I want to work on being thin? Have I been thin? Listen, I had a gastric bypass. I had been on more diets than, well, there's not much hair left on the head, so I can't say that. But I've been on more diets than diets. And my father would say it in Italian, and I'm going to say it in English. It's not what you're eating, it's what's eating you.
Yes, absolutely.
And once I get past that point, I'm fine. I haven't gotten there yet because I have other issues. But to get back to that story, um, before I opened my mouth to sing, and before she saw me on stage, because it's a role that I had done, and I'm not going to mention where or who, um, it's somebody relatively young, probably 20 years younger than I am,
Hmm.
said to me that I don't belong on the stage.
Wow.
Okay. So she went to the conductor, she went to the managers, and again, I did not sing a note. They didn't. She never heard me sing. She never saw me on stage. So, and this is not a role. It's not a romantic role. It was Scorpio. So she made such a hissy fit, and then she heard me sing, and then she came up to me and she told me, she said, you know, I have to tell you that I didn't want you in this production. And I said, yes, I see that, and I realize that. I said, can I ask you one question? And she said, oh, yes. I said, if you closed your eyes and you just heard me sing, and you heard, would you say that again? If there was a screen here? She says, well, that's not the point. It's a visual act. I said, now you saw me on stage and you saw what I did. Did you see me as a fat Scarpia, or did you just see me as Scarpia? She says, I honestly have to say that after I saw what you did, it was Scarpia. But the initial visual picture that I got was that you did not belong on stage. And she finally said it. And I said, well, I hope that this is a lesson to you, that just because somebody is overweight, I don't look uncomfortable. Now, God rest his soul, my brother did towards the end. He did look uncomfortable on stage. But I'm an active fat guy. I'm the most in shape, out of shape guy you want to see, because I move. I can move. I'm constantly moving. I'm not sedentary. And they think of you automatically as lazy. They think of you automatically as dumb.
Yeah.
So, and again, it's just to be honest with you, it really is discrimination to a point. When I always say, prove them wrong, and I did. She might not agree with. She probably will never hire me again. Not that I wouldn't work with her anyway, but it's not the right way to cast. Or what you have to do is look at the person at the job that they're doing. If they can fill that position, it doesn't matter. Look at when Deborah Voigt was
Yes.
at her best. And listen, Pavarotti, he was thin like I was when we first started. But Pavarotti, how many bombs did he do? And he was 300 and some pounds.
That's right. Absolutely.
I mean,
and
did
nobody
you ever
cared.
No, exactly. Exactly.
Nobody cared.
And again, I'm not Pavarotti. Don't get me wrong. I'm not putting myself in that league. But I was a better actor than Pavarotti. I'll tell you that. I can honestly say. I'll tell the truth.
You are prettier.
And I have Pavarotti stories too. I can tell you, Blue.
Bet you
But
do.
oh my God! But anyway, it's just I was hurt. I was devastated. I don't see myself as ugly to anybody, And I think that, you know, my personality doesn't warrant that discrimination or that hatred. It's really hatred. It is hatred. And there was a director, and I was not heavy at all, that said that if I didn't lose, it was somebody in, I'm not going to say his name. When I left Chautauqua, I was probably in shape, and I was big. I was 270, but I was in shape. I was built. And they said, well, you have to lose 30 pounds because you won't be able to fit in the costume, or we can't hire you. I said, then don't hire me. Don't hire me.
You know, I think when we get around those people, you know, first of all, I saw a lack of imagination in our opera world. There was huge imagination before, and there was also understanding of what it took to get there. But I think the other element that's left, and possibly at times was not there even back in the golden era, and that's treating people like a human being. I think if we can, first of all, these young singers that are coming up, there's so many different things to battle. Some people can see our battle. Other things are internal that people can't see. And so I pray for a kinder, more positive opera world where we really get back to kind of what we had talked about in your interview with me, which is the glory of the human voice. That's really, you know, we have screen, we have movies, we have all other different genres of stage life. This one is uniquely different.
I'm lying wide awake. I cannot fall asleep. I've got a bellyache. Left over me, though, smothered with rage. Sits inside my stomach like a brick made of lead. I left my dear wife's recipe is still a mystery. Her cooking tortures me. Rancid severity, irregularity. Constant suggestion is my lot tonight. I am searching for a better life, a most appealing meal made without my wife. I can see it in its heavenly form, in the oven keeping warm. It's time to eat it, it's time to eat it. Pasta with cream sauce in a casserole, broccoli soup, hot boiled roll. Tenderloin with pork with rice that's wild. Look at me, I'm truly a child. And for dessert, at dinner wine. Else by myself I'll die. Nothing frozen, nothing in a can. My ways are evil, I am a natural man. Bring your brother, bring your cousin too, and I'll make a little stew or barbecue. I love to chew. Hamburgers, hot dogs, mother's apple pie, Ben and Jerry's ice cream, chicken to fry. I love my things I love to eat. All I do is eat. An apron and a pan, a can of lard, fried chicken meat on guard. Hot jelly donuts, eaten by the score, rat cakes with mustard, lobster in galore. I devoted all my life to food, boiled, roasted, or stewed. I'm growing the cuisine right out the door. Lights are quite aboard. Yes, another bag of more. Yes, another bag of more.
And I will say that if you are underweight, I would be concerned about, if it were me, if I were extremely underweight, singing Wotan for a period of time. I'm telling you, I'm doing some munchies.
Yeah, I hear you. I treat a human being the way I think that they should be treated, with respect. And again, it goes back to, there is a lack of respect today. There's a lack of, there's just, you know, and I don't know where it stems from. I'm not a social guru where I can say, well, and point the finger, which I would never do anyway. But the only place that I can say that it starts with me is with my children. because, and same way with you, because I know your kids are respectful as hell. Humility is a great miscommunication today. A lot of people think that they're humble or they have humility, and
And some
they
people look
really
at
don't.
humility as weakness.
That's true.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, John, I will say this. I think, and we've noticed it, especially with some of the responses from the singers that
Mhm.
you've invited to master class, the impact that's happened to them, some that had gotten to the point of really contemplating being done with it.
Yeah.
And so I do want to commend you. I think the example that you set forth with those young singers, with the encouragement, love for the art and for the gift that someone has.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I think your approach to this is what we all need to be doing, as opposed to really we've kind of gotten to a disposable type of uh, of world.
Society.
Many singers struggle with a lot of different things.
Mhm.
They struggle with sex. They struggle with drugs, alcohol, um, finances. I mean, we could sit and talk about that all day. When we came through college, we never were taught uh, how to handle the business.
No,
Um,
no,
there are
not
just
at all.
so many things
Yeah.
that family life, losing your dad,
Oh,
uh, losing your brother,
yeah.
um, you know,
Yeah.
life happens. But well, listen, I know that you like to shy away from the spotlight.
I do.
Uh, and I know you're like going, George, when is this thing going to be
No,
over?
no, no.
If you were, I think I know what your answer is going to be.
Okay.
Um, but if you go back and you looked at your career, um, what would you redo?
First of all, I would have a lot more patience. Now, we were all disciplined. We all, we all had the discipline. The problem is that you want it to happen now, and it doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, age is a big factor.
Hmm.
Capabilities are another. You want it all right now, right this second, and you want it to happen now. It's a process, and being that process takes years. And a lot of people are fortunate that they can sing early and get away with it. Most people need to be patient and let things happen naturally. You can't force something to happen. And that's when you get into trouble. And because what happens, you start creating tones, or you start creating a way of singing that takes a long time to get out of. And if I had to do it over again, I would have waited. I would have waited. I would have stayed. And we didn't talk about this, but I have to say that when I left PCPA, Bahan wanted me to study with him, and he wanted me to go to AVA. And so Richard, arranged this thing. So they backdoored me. They tried to backdoor me into AVA.
Hmm.
And Chris Bakasaurus, who I love dearly and who's a genius,
And John,
his
yes,
partner was my son's mentor. I just want you to know that.
I did not know that.
Yes, yes. So Chris told me, "You don't belong here. You didn't audition properly. You shouldn't be here." And of course, me being me, I turned around and I walked out because I was having a career. If I
Right.
was smart, I would have stood in school. I would have did more apprentice programs. I would have took my time until it was really my time to sing, because that's the most important thing for me, is that if I had to go back and do it again, I would have waited, and I didn't. I was because again I was hired. Why, I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe because they thought it was like. And then again, I'm not throwing bouquets at myself. I'm not. But I did a lot of big things at a young
At a
age,
very yes, you
and
did.
and I got through them. But if I listen to them now, and I would say, "Oh my God, how the hell did I listen to this? Who hired me to do this?" That's what the big patience, and determination that things will work out. That's one of the things that I would have done. Otherwise, I got a pretty decent musical education. I was pretty musical.
The violin, right?
Oh, right. Well, I have to tell you the story. Wait,
Okay.
that you just reminded me. So I'm doing Papageno at PCPA. Okay. So I'm all prepared. It's the Sitzprobe. We're on stage. I'm dressed nice. I know my music. I am on the top of my game. Who walks in?
Oh no.
Joe Primavera. And I said, no, he'll never remember. He'll never remember. And I'm saying, oh shit, he's going to remember. Oh my God. So he came in with a cigarette, put his score on the stand, and he looks up. He says, Tenaglia. He said, you know, this kid told me to stick the violin up my ass when he was in 4th grade. I was mortified. That I was in the cast with. I love to have fun. And, you know, do you remember Gordon File?
Yeah.
Now, Gordon File had a beautiful bass baritone voice, lyric bass baritone, Mozart bass baritone. And we would always play practical jokes on each other all the time. And I'll tell you one story. Now, Gordon was a little older. So I was we were still in PCPA. I was maybe 18 or 19. And we were doing this Handel opera. And Gordon had to sing this low D. Now, at our age, at that age, who has a low D that's really going to, you know, rock the walls? So he struggled with it, and then he admits it. So I made it worse. So we had these tights and a dress-like kind of outfit, like a what do you say, Robin Hood kind of outfit.
Yes.
So what I did was I got a paper clip and I put it on the bottom of my costume, and I put the string through and I pulled it up here, and I had it in my hand. So now every time that he would go down for the low D, I would pull the string and the front of my costume would raise. Now my back was to the audience. So now see, he would go, and he would look at me and he would get so pissed. So now we're doing Aida with one of the symphonies. Ricky was doing, in fact, Ricky, it was Ricky Burke. It was doing the Radames. I was doing Amonasro. Donna Roll was the Aida.
Yes.
Gordon was either the king or I forget what role he had.
Rumpus or whatever.
Rumpus, yeah. Well, there's 2 bass rolls in there.
Yeah.
So it was concert version. This was the best of the best. He got me, and this is, let me tell you something, one of the funniest things that has ever happened to me in my life. So we're on stage. Okay. There was the performance for the patrons. Now, in this triumphal scene, I always had trouble with the I never could get all the damn words in. I said, man, damn, and I was trying so damn hard, and I finally got it. So we're at the performance, and we're standing there, and Gordon has his music up, and he says, Tenaglia. I said, what? He says, look at what? And this is where it's coming up in the second act, you know, my line.
Oh, yeah.
And he says, look, hurry up. And I turned my head. The son of a bitch had a bow tie that came out and spun around. And I'm ready to sing this part, you know, Fakor, and I lost it. I think Jerry Fisher was the conductor, and Jerry's going, he one saw it, but me. It was one of the funniest things that I've ever had happen to me, ever. I mean, that was funny. That was funny.
Well, I have to say, man, you know, there's nobody that loves to laugh with you more than me.
I said, you know, Stephen, out of all the conductors that I work with, which were hundreds, he was one of the most, and I always had respect for him because he took the time to come to me out of everybody and said, how can I help you? And that's the problem today, because if it's not instantaneous, nobody's going to take the time to do it. And that's shame on them, because
I think the other thing too, though, is they don't know how to help.
No, that is true. That is true. Family to me was worth more than anything, any money that I've ever made, any music that I've ever done. And that's just the way that I was raised. And I'm sorry if it offends people that my family came first before my career. But you want to know something? I was blessed, as you were, to have 2 beautiful boys, beautiful wife, Penny, and a beautiful family. And so do I. I have a son and a daughter. There is nothing better than your children's success. And
That's right.
I would cut my cords for my kids.